welcome to our presentation. Our presentation is going to focus on the Marrmak unit, which is at the Dame Phyllis Frost Centre, which is a female prison. But firstly, Amy is going to give us a brief overview.
Thanks, Will. Hi, I'm Amy, here to talk to you about the history of the Marrmak unit. Marrmak is the first of its kind, established in 2006, which is aimed at addressing mental health and preventing reoffending. To help you better understand its setup through a meso, macro and micro system, as seen in the following slide. In its brief history, the reported high percentage of prisoners presenting with a mental health issue led to the establishment of Marrmak. The unit includes a 20-bed facility that delivers specialist treatment for women entering the prison with a mental health illness. The unit provides specialist inpatient unit as well as an outpatient outreach program and training services. Marrmak is an evolving program focused on identifying and addressing gaps and disadvantages within the program.
Thanks, Amy. Did you know that 80% of the prisoners at the prison suffer from some form of mental illness?
No, I didn't.
There you go, you learn something new every day. Next, Darcy will be talking about the symbol behind the Marrmak unit. Darcy?
Thanks, Will and Amy. The Marrmak symbol is called the Healing Path, created by an Indigenous woman called Rhonda. The spiral represents the women coming into the Marrmak unit, while the lizard symbolises the women leaving when they are well. The symbol was inspired by the word Marrmak, which is actually a Wurundjeri word for safe. Before I pass on to Will, here is a better photo of the Marrmak symbol.
Great information, Darcy. Did you know that 25% of the prison is Indigenous?
Yes, I did know that.
And now, next, Rodrigo with a bit more information.
Thanks, Will. Forensic care is guided by the Code of Conduct and Values established by the State Services Authority for the Public Sector. These values include responsiveness, integrity, impartiality, respect, leadership, and human rights. The Marrmak program objectives aim to provide a specialist service that reflects what services are in the community and is a continuum of care through the establishment of referral processes between internal and external services.
Thanks, buddy. And now a bit of general discussion about our interview with the social worker at the prison. Now time for the discussion Have Destiny. Darcy?
Thank you. So this one asks us about who we interviewed.
So who do we interview, Darcy?
We interviewed a social worker at the Marrmak unit, and she's the only one on site. It also prompts us to talk about where she studied and who she works for. Didn't she study at La Trobe University like us? She did. Anyone else? In Bundoora.
Yeah. And did she do the similar course as us? The
Yeah,
master's course, was it?
I knew that she was talking about how when she went to uni it was just a bachelor, and now that she wishes that she could go back and do the masters as well. And who does she work for now?
Who do you work for?
She works in the Marrmak unit, but it's under forensic care. Yeah. In the Dame Phyllis Frost Centre of prison. Another interesting thing that she talked about was her job description versus the reality of her role.
So she had like a big document saying her job description, and she's like, there wasn't this job before, they just gave me a piece of paper.
Yeah.
And what did she say her actual job description compared to the piece of paper was?
Well, the job description she gave us was for the forensic care social worker in a mental health unit, but it didn't specify to the prison environment. So she would have to navigate working in a prison system, a legal system, also communicating with the community, and also the immediate context of Marrmak Centre. Yeah. Okay, who's next?
I think it's time for a bit of Rodrigo.
Let's see what we've got now. So this touches on the topic that it is a non-gazetted. Non-gazetted?
Yeah,
Gazetted.
gazetted. Yeah.
So that means that everyone's voluntary at the unit?
Yeah, that would make it really reliable on the rapport the professionals build with the clients, and it'd be so much work.
It's
It would
classical,
be.
okay. Yeah, and look, and it puts the responsibility back on the actual inmates there. You know, it gives them their puts the power on their side and their independence. Yeah, so no, that sounds like a good plan. Another point here is the involuntary hospitalizations.
Does anyone know what that is?
Exactly.
I'm not quite sure.
I remember she was saying as part of forensic care, there's the Thomas Embling Hospital.
Mm.
So when there is a prisoner that needs to be involuntarily hospitalised due to mental health, there are only 10 beds in the whole of Victoria for a female prisoner to go to. And most of the time, the average is that there's 3 open.
Not much, is it?
No,
They do not go quietly.
Okay. Next card, I think it's time for Amy.
Oh, okay. Cool. Get it? Okay. So this one is focusing on the different practices and approaches that the social worker took. So it's talking about, the first prompt is task-centered practice. This takes place in Marrmak unit due to its specific nature of mental health. Does anyone want to elaborate?
I guess they have a specific time frame to work, so they would have to be quite focused in their approach and the theories that they would use.
Yeah. Well,
They have to get through the day, and sometimes that's all their focus is.
yeah. It must be big time frames with such a lot of work to do it in.
You just got to take it one day at a time. What's the next point you got there, Amy?
Client-centered approach just says that it's important to explain the work. You must work from the client, where the client is at, and take into consideration their personal aspects.
So what was the example she used when we were there? It was a client wasn't happy taking her pills at lunchtime?
Yeah, because it was making her really sick, like making her feel quite ill. And then, like, the patient wanted to take the pills at night so then she could sleep it off. That way she...
Yeah. So you don't have to be awake through the nausea.
Yeah.
And having to schedule that means that it's going to change the way that you do your job. You have to base it around the client and not about what's easiest for the people that are working in the prison.
Need a bit of flexibility.
So yeah, it was one of the major theories she was using.
Yeah, that's
it
the
would have been
major
client
one.
based.
Yeah. And last one we have here is the systems theory and how it can be applied to the responsibilities of the social worker and how it connects the prison and the Marrmak Centre to other organisations.
Well, basic system theories I think you use in every form of social work practice. Would you guys agree? Or?
Yeah, well,
I think so.
she was talking about housing as a systems theory with other organisations like public housing, which I thought was really important because once the client gets released from the prison environment, they're going to need that support system to connect with.
And as a social worker in a hospital, I guess dealing with day-to-day tasks with the client, there isn't really much of a chance to change things on a macro scale. So they're really focusing on micro and meso levels.
Yeah.
Because those are the immediate issues. Of course, they can have influence on the macro level if they have the time.
I agree.
Okay, I think it's now time for the next
point.
member of our team to choose a card from the Hat of Destiny. I think it's Sarah's turn.
Okay, so next point we're going to talk about is how at the Dame Phyllis Frost Centre use a multidisciplinary team. So as it stands, our social worker, she's the only social worker in the whole place, there's 3 occupational therapists, 1 psychiatrist and a registrar, which means someone who's in training, I guess, 2 psychologists and an Indigenous liaison officer. Now, on a macro scale, as we were just discussing, the views of fixing today when social work focuses on tomorrow too clash. So, say a medical model focuses on today, but a social worker focuses on tomorrow and the next day. And that's something that perplexes the medical realm, I suppose. And some prisoners, there's an actual unit in the hospital, the prison that where they're protected from other inmates. And once they make a decision to go in there, they cannot leave, and they pretty much have no interaction with anyone other than the workers. Yeah.
It's a big
So
issue.
it's a huge decision to make, but they must feel like their life is at risk to the point where if they don't be put into this unit, they will die.
I think what the social worker was saying, like, imagine someone's been in there for like 20 years in isolation, and then you just let them back out in society. That's a big...
Yeah, I think she's mentioning that the people that are in that specific unit do tend to reoffend more frequently, and once they're out of prison, because they don't have that connection with the others.
The social skills, And I'm sure that impacts the social workers' practice as well, because they don't have the same flexibility as with a client that they'd be working with that can come to the unit itself and participate in programs.
And let's bring it back to, organisations and organisational structure. I mean, what does that mean for social workers and organisations if in order to protect someone from being, shanked or shivved or, harmed in any way, the only option is to throw them in the hole, and then they come out and reoffend. I mean, what does that mean for us and organisations?
And how can we address it?
Yeah.
These are some issues we might cover later in our SWOT analysis. Okay, I think it's time for the last little thing. Piece of paper. I'll choose one myself. So.
Back off.
Programs at Marrmak. So they had pet therapy. Does anyone want to start us off about pet therapy?
So pet therapy, it can focus on like mates for inmates is a similar one, where animals, or predominantly dogs or puppies, get brought into the prison from the community or members of the community, and they get to interact with the prisoners on a regular basis just to get them connecting with others in the community, and brightens their day a little bit.
Art therapy, twice a week, I suppose that's pretty similar. But she was saying a lot of the prisoners there with some amazing art, and always find myself, if I'm painting something or I'm doing something creative, I find it quite therapeutic myself. It's very relaxing. Well, at least I'll try and be on fine detail, but usually I find it quite relaxing. What do you think, Rodrigo?
Oh, look, it's an opportunity to express yourself. Say anything in regards to the art, just kind of gives you that space to enjoy, really.
Another next point we have is just there's general art classes, gym, study options. So at the prison, they try and, even though it's a very structured life, they try and keep the prisoners busy. So I think that's a big thing, I think, because you're going to get, I suppose it's still punishment, but you want to try and get these people back out.
Yeah.
You don't want
Well,
them
it-
to cage madness.
It allows them to make a living for themselves. Like if they need to send some form of care to children outside, they still have some kind of an income coming in, to even buy themselves a small meal from the cafeteria or
Okay, I think that's all we've got for our discussion. Our next segment is going to be on our SWOT analysis. So take it away, Will.
Okay.
Thanks, Will. And now time for our SWOT analysis. So SWOT stands for Strengths, Weaknesses, Opportunities, and Threats. Strengths and weaknesses are internal, opportunities and threats are external. So I'm going to start off with a few strengths of the facility. So it's first of its kind, addresses previous unnamed mental health it needs, and uses a multidisciplinary team. So as we said previously, 80% of the population of the prison will suffer from some form of mental illness. So it's definitely addressing a needed need.
Yeah.
Well, I've got some weaknesses of the organisation as well with me. So some of the weaknesses include the limited resources that the facility can partake in or use, lack of professionals. We've noted that there was only one social worker for the unit, lack of housing and resources once the clients have been released from the prison environment, the limited time frame per client that's allowed, and we also have the support for the clients once released is very limited because they're kind of on their own to be independent when they've had such a structured lifestyle.
Sounds good. Now on
No,
opportunities.
it doesn't.
Doesn't sound that good, but
No.
Yeah,
But well done.
Well, in regards to opportunities, the Marrmak program is able to extend to other services, so i.e. the male prison, implementing the Marrmak program.
So that shows it's doing well
Yeah.
itself. If they're willing to expand to another prison, that means that it's obviously working in some form at the moment at the Dame Phyllis Ross Centre.
Exactly right. Social worker did say it's an ever-expanding program.
Ever expanding. I love that word.
Mm-hmm.
And now Sarah's going to do our threats, which are a number of them.
Yeah. The main thing I think is, as we've discussed as a group, is funding. As we all know, there've been a lot of cutbacks throughout Australia, and this might be a threat in the future to Marrmak and to the ever expanding nature of mental health programs in prisons. There is also a threat to a person like a social worker, their professional autonomy, exactly how much they can do, how far they can take things. It means that they have people to answer to and they may not listen. In the long-term scheme of things, we're still not sure if this is going to be a very, very, very successful program, but that is yet to be found out. But if it isn't, then we have a little bit of a problem on our hands. And it might not inspire the powers that be that fund it to take it even further than just a few dotted prisons around the place. There is also a huge threat to burnout because our social worker at Marrmak, she's the only one there. And if she gets ill or can't deal with it anymore for whatever reason or decides to move on, then they're going to be without a social worker, and you can't really have that at all. So I guess the biggest threat is limited scope in terms of resources, funding, human resources, and trust and autonomy.
Yeah, it all comes down to funding and support, pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thanks guys, and that's the end of our SWOT analysis. And that's the end of our presentation. I hope you enjoyed the discussion in class. Bye bye.
See you later.